If you think change is risky, then wait till you find out about the cost of not changing. The more you change your environment, the more you realize, wait, I don't have to be at the cause of the environment having influence on me. I can flip this around and I can actually influence my environment to become what I want to become. People that can help me see the world that I don't have access to yet. The reality of roadmaps is life is not a linear path. It's all of these changes, it's all of these loops. We're going to be talking about pain and the pleasure of change. Change, like something changing, super interesting. So let's zoom back in time for a sec. 2020, we all remember it kind of as COVID year. But 2020, I had a massive change at the start of the year, which was I quit my job at an academy. Now, massive change because, you're giving up a stable salary. There's a proper office with my whole entire team that I'd slowly hired over the course of 2.5 years. It was a difficult change also because, leaving a certain thing for something that's uncertain, which is like doing a startup or going and doing my own thing. That was a big change that happened 2020, Jan. But then a big change that all of us also went through was COVID. We're not going to talk about that. And then in December 2020, the change was I moved to Copenhagen. But change is exciting, right? The pleasure of change is the possibilities. What's possible that I haven't considered? What are the things that I'm going to run into that I have no clue about that I'm just going to, get to experience for the first time? The pleasure of doing something for the first time ever. I'm 31 right now. And for me, at least let's say in my design career, a lot of these firsts, like for example, first app, first website, first time client fuck up, first time hitting certain financial milestones, like a lot of those first happened in my 20s. So for me, the reason Europe seemed exciting in 2020 was because there was a straightforward path for me to go, right? My girlfriend at the time, and then we got married, Ghana, she got a job in Europe. And so it was a bit of a clear path for me to go. And the pleasure of change is that, hey, what are the possibilities? You get to experience a new environment. New environment also means new influences, right? What's an influence? The environment we're in, it has a certain impact on us. A lot of it is invisible. But going into a new environment that you have no clue about, you also have no clue about what the influence of that environment is going to be, right? And it's probably going to be a bunch of positives, but also a lot of negative stuff that you have to adjust to. Let's take a look at this, okay? Let's assume that we're here. We're here right now. There is a certain future that we can kind of vaguely imagine, right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen roadmap videos, right? The reality of roadmaps. Now, we're pretty accustomed to like, hey, get an Uber, point A, we go to point B, right? So, well, imagining the future, it's possible to think like, hey, we're now, and then there is some future, like I want to get a better job. I want to become a designer. I want to become a higher paying designer. I want to learn certain skills. I want to work with better people. You're imagining this future, and this future, overall, what it represents, it's change. And this future, unlike, getting an Uber point A to point B, is usually something like this. It's uncertain. You're going to have a lot of false starts. You're going to have a lot of loops. And to be very honest with you guys, the reality of roadmaps is life is not a linear path, right? It's all of these changes. It's all of these loops. It's all of these, like losing motivation. It's all of these, you think you're headed somewhere, but then you have a break in motivation. Like something happens and it's like boom. And then when you restart it, you have to start over, or you have to be like, oh, I got to get myself in the zone again. But what keeps us going? Really, what keeps us going? I'll tell you what keeps me going. I don't have a solution, right? It's really difficult for me too, a lot of times. But something I realized is if you think change is risky, then wait till you find out about the cost of not changing. And that's a realization that I came face to face with, right? What is the cost of not changing? What is the cost of everything being the same? Because, hey, change is kind of a scary thing, right? It's uncertainty. Like, even if you want to do something new, a lot of times, like, wait, fuck, I'll have to stop doing what I'm doing right now. Who knows how that's going to go? And then I'm going to have to start something else. If you think change is risky, wait till you find out about the cost of not changing. Kind of a boom moment for me, right? When kind of realized this. And I realized I needed to change something. Like the environment that I was in, Copenhagen, it was peaceful, but it was not the environment I wanted to be. And I did not have the influence of the environment that I was hoping for. Somehow, over the last 4 years, I became a very peaceful, relaxed, more like grounded person. But I found myself losing the hunger to do stuff. I was just like, kya zarurat hai? Why do I need to do this? Kyun karna hai? Just visualizing the future, right? Of course, it's uncertain. Of course, not a straight line. You have to go through these loops. But the kind of other realization here is, hey, we can also imagine the past in a very similar way. We can think of the past as like the straight line. We're just drawing, connecting the dots. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. Let's imagine the other scenario, which is we are here right now. We are in the future. Right now, we're in the future. When we're looking back at, I was in school and I was like, I thought I would be a podcaster or some shit, right? Things might not have worked out, but then there was then I thought, I was in school and I thought I'll be on roadies and I thought that I'll launch my influencer career with road. I'm kind of kidding, but yeah, I did think that at some point. Okay. And looking back, being here, it was not a straight line. It was not guaranteed, but I did go through that shit. We did go through these loops and we're here right now. Okay. So guys, the topic I want to start with, the first one, that was a little bit of overview, setting things up. I want to talk about a very actionable, very like straightforward topic. Okay. How to transition to design with a 9 to 5 job or from college. There's a few things I want to talk about today. Okay. And I'm going to break this in a very systematic way. We right now are doing a whiteboarding exercise. I'm going to break some things down. Inputs. What do you need? Inputs. What do you need? Milestones. How do you know you're making progress? What are the beliefs that make you more creative? How do you know that you have the right mindsets to be in a creative career? And how do you build it? The move, the big move, the small move, the move, right? The transition. What does it look like? And what are the paths available? The network. Who would it be useful to know? Who are people on a very similar journey that we can have a mutual exchange with, that I can learn stuff from, and they can teach me something, and maybe in return I can tell them a little bit about my side of things. Maybe we can learn something together. Or people that can help me see the world that I don't have access to yet. Or a squad that I can build this with. And overall, what this kind of leads to is your first paycheck. Cha-ching! The first paycheck as a designer, right? A big one. Now, the way I want you guys to imagine this, since we're doing whiteboarding, is this is you right here. There is a certain invisible thing that I'll say environment. There's other people in this environment. There's certain objects in this environment. Now, there's certain unspoken rules of the environment. Let's just say the social code. But point I'm trying to make is all this stuff, this environment has an effect on you. The people you meet have an influence. Me in Copenhagen, I realized that the person I was, right, in my design journey, I was that way because somehow the environment, either went out and found this environment or happened to be in it, Bangalore, or in college in Manipal. The environment had a huge effect on me. I met a lot of people who were so interesting doing cool stuff that I wanted to match up to what they were doing. And that influence kind of pushed me forward. And then there was a time when I found myself in a totally different environment, sometime in the future, in, let's say Europe. And I was like, yo, to be very real with you, one of the reasons I moved back is because work is super important to me, right? And I won't call it career or something, but personally for me, I really found myself in a place where it was a bad environmental effect. And let's cut my story for a bit, right? Let's get back to the scenario here. The inputs that you're receiving, the inputs that you receive, right? The people you spend time with, your parents, they are a certain way. That is a huge influence on you. The milestones help you keep track. Creating something means changing something, right? You create something new, something changes. As designers, we're in the business of change. Everything we design changes something to an extent, right? And I don't even mean second order consequences like changing the world eventually, right? I'm saying you create something and now this thing that didn't exist before, becomes a part of the environment, and it has an influence on the other people in that environment, right? And when things change, it disrupts, like, the things that you thought were there, the things that you've grown used to, or the things that you learned a certain way of operating, and now the whole variables have changed. I would say a lot of creativity is figuring out how do you deal with change. It's not easy. We assume there is a certain pleasure of things changing. It keeps you stimulated, it keeps you motivated. How do you keep yourself motivated? A very simple way to stay motivated is to change things, right? To change your environment, to actually go to a coffee shop and work one day, and then you overhear a conversation and you're like, bro, people are doing some crazy shit, huh? Or you overhear something else and you're like, bro, I don't want to end up in that scenario, like, being pitched an MLM or some shit. Eventually, there is something which is the jump. Along the way, you find people who influence you, and then eventually, of course, the goal of transitioning to design is your first job, right? The inputs that you need to make things happen, okay, there are the skills that you need to learn, there are the tools that you need to get better at, and there is the time that you need to invest. Okay, I'm going to connect all these pieces, but right now let's talk about the individual pieces. Okay, the inputs that you need to make a change happen: skills, tools, time. Okay, milestones. Now, a big milestone for me, of course, is related to the above, but if you want to become a designer, you got to know Figma, right? Like, straight up. But if you already know Figma, the rest is what kind of projects you want to do, or what kind of change that you want to create. So, for example, a very simple one is what motivated me to learn Photoshop for the very first time, right? Figma didn't exist. This was like 10 years ago or something. What motivated me is I wanted to change my Facebook header. The heading picture on Facebook, I wanted to change it. And so I was like, how do I change it? I was like, okay, I want to make something. So then I was like, okay, let me think about what to make. And then I was like, okay, I thought about it. Now, thinking is not enough. How do I change it? And then I realized I needed to use my time to learn, to make, and then to change. And then I changed it. And then I realized, hey, that's not all what I want to change. I want to do some projects. And then for these projects, I need to learn these tools. And the more tools that I was learning, the more my skills were going up, which is, hey, I could make a profile picture, I could make a header, right? I started with like very basic stuff, right? Mostly because this basic stuff was fun for me. 10 years ago, like, I wasn't really thinking about let's make an app, little bit, but I was more thinking about let's make something that people can see, that people can use, right? So I was like, okay, I want to make t-shirt design. I want to actually print a t-shirt with something that I design on it, and then I'll wear it, and then I'll print another one for my friends. So my skills, my ability to do stuff went up. In terms of milestones though, right? Let's go very specific now for a sec. I know I was going a bit general. You want to specifically get into things like UI UX design, right? Some of the milestones you need to hit is get comfy with Figma. Number 2, make things. What do you make? See, don't make things that you heard somebody. Like, of course you can go and design an app, design a website, but unless you're really interested in doing that, I don't want you to half-ass. Okay, don't half-ass things. Make things you're super interested in, right? So if you're like, yo, I want to put some stickers on my laptop and I want to design something. Okay, let's say you want to do that. You go learn the tools, learn enough to do it, go get it printed, right? It's very easy to print t-shirts, stickers, things like that these days, and then make it happen. Some milestones though, whether that's brand new role, or whether you want to become more creative, right? Whatever that output is for you, a job, freelancing, we'll talk about those paths in a bit. And then you gotta share it with people. Now, ideally, you want to share with people who don't bring you down, being like, bro, kya kar raha hai, and all this. You want to share with people who are also excited, and then figure out the tools later, right? I think a lot of people, one common mistake people make is they're like, I'm gonna learn tool A, right? Like, for example, oh, I'm gonna learn Blender to do 3D, but then they realized the actual thing that they wanted to do was 3D print a vase or something, right? But they spent so much time here that they never get to what was the purpose, like actually using it for something. So my suggestion, don't learn tools and then figure out, this kind of thing. It's usually better to do this the other way around. Find stuff that you're excited to do, right? Like, oh, I'm really excited about this. So folks, in terms of milestones, of course, this is not an official UI UX design roadmap video. I've already made one of those, and it's got like more than 100,000 views. You can go check that if you really want a more breakdown into that. This is more of how do you keep yourself on track, right? The thing about demotivation that we were all talking about, milestones is a way to check, am I making progress? If you're going somewhere, you check the milestones to see, hey, how far am I? Have I reached this place yet, right? Am I making progress? That's what milestones are about. So, folks, getting demotivated, think about what your milestones are, right? And granular milestones, I want to make this happen. Now, guys, here's the other downside of being a creative person. We want everything. We want everything. Like, dude, I want to design the clothes I wear, okay? And then I do it, and then I realize, wow, I just spent 3 months doing this thing, and I spent all that time that I could be doing something else. I didn't design this, by the way. I'm just giving an example. A big downside of being a creative, which is like, yeah, we want to do everything. We want to make everything. Like, talking about this idea of environment, here's the fun part. Okay, talking about this, once you realize that you can change something in your environment, like literally a very small one, okay, for you guys, is your space. Let's say you have your room or something, right? Maybe you live with your parents, maybe you're in the hostel, maybe you just moved into a place, whatever it might be. What are the posters on your wall? Really, what are the posters on your wall? You see this right here? I've got 0 posters on this wall. And as a creative person, I'm like, oh, let's change this. Let's put some cool background right here. I really want to make that happen. Is once you realize, right? Like my suggestion to those of you who have blank walls. Now, I know I've got a blank wall as well. Today, put some posters on your wall. Okay. Why? It's because you just realizing that you can change your environment, not just intellectually, actually doing something and your environment changes. Like now, suddenly every day you're looking at something on your wall. Like you realize that, hey, if I can change one thing in my environment, I can probably also change the second thing in my environment, right? And then you realize, oh, I can also change the third thing, which is I can now, find new people to connect with. And that's a part of my environment now. Or I can go to new places. And this new place that I go to, it has a certain influence on me. And then it's like, oh, I changed my environment by going to new places. And this realization snowballs because the more you change your environment, the more you realize, wait, I don't have to be at the cause of the environment having influence on me. I can flip this around and I can actually influence my environment to become what I want to become, right? You're here and whatever this future looks like. So, folks, bit abstract, but now let's jump back in here. All these things we're talking about, it comes down to the creative mindset. It's realizing that change is possible. Change your environment. Go work from a cafe once a week, twice a week. Go to a cafe you've never gone to before. Order something you've never ordered before. Eat something that's new to you. But make the decision to do it. Right? Don't go with the flow of other people. Right? Do something new. You realize, hey, I did this. It was cool. I got to do something new. Right? Whatever that is. Like, I'll put this under. Seek novelty. Right? Seek something new. Make something you've never made before, right? So I'll say follow curiosity, fall down rabbit holes. You guys know what a rabbit hole is, right? Like it's like you find something and you're like, yo, that's so interesting. Like after World War II, why did the Germans send an entire operation to Antarctica? That's so interesting. And then you start reading about it and you're like, Operation Paperclip. Okay, cool. So a lot of these folks went to the US. The US did a recruitment thing. And then 4 hours later, you're reading about how the Nazis have a secret base in Antarctica and that there are pyramids on Antarctica. And like the whole government, all world governments have a plan to not let you find out the real truth about Antarctica. That's a rabbit hole. Okay. I hope you understand what I meant. That's a rabbit hole. Now, not all rabbit holes are of that flavor, the conspiracy flavor, but some rabbit holes are. Okay. But that is so important as a designer. Okay. Not the idea of looking, not the idea of conspiracy theories. It's so important as a designer to seek novelty, right? The more your life is the same, the more you start feeling like, oh, maybe change is not possible. Here, this thing right here. The more things stay the same, the more you assume, oh, that's how things always have been. That's how things always will be. And then you know what happens? You get stuck here, right here. Making sense, guys? Yeah. Okay. Creative mindset. The more you do this, the more comfortable you feel following your curiosity because you realize, hey, the thing is change. The default change feels scary because as humans, we are scared of the unknown, right? But the more rabbit holes you go down, you're like, hey, maybe it's not that scary. Like it was kind of interesting. Like at some point, I had an existential crisis, but then, I was like, oh, like that's not so bad. Like it reinforces this loop, right? You feel more confident about following your curiosity. The more you realize change is fun. Change is fun. Because if things were the same, I would stay stuck. And even if things are awesome, couldn't they be better? The more you follow curiosity, the more confidence you get to actually change your environment. Right? The reason we might not want to change our environment is because usually we're comfortable, right? Let me tell you, last 4 years, not to say I was like chilling 100% or something, it was comfy. And I realized, hey, I'm missing out on a lot. All my friends were doing cool stuff. I want to know about that. Like, I want to talk to them about it. I want to mastermind some shit, right? I want to mastermind some shit, make some shit happen. But it reinforces this, it gives you the confidence to actually change more environment. And then you realize you want to, and when I say make something, it follows from I want to change something and then you want to make something. And then once you do it, you realize, wow, harder than I thought. Makes sense so far, folks, right? Those of you who want to transition to design, 9 to 5 job from college, making sense so far? Because this is not your traditional roadmap video, right? Something we talked about earlier is the reality of roadmaps. They kind of present this linear path that you can just kind of do. But in reality, it's more like this. It's more like this messy middle that you might be in. The move, I'm going to call it leap of faith. The network, I'm going to call it squad. And social motivation. Guys, do you know what social motivation is? We'll get to that in a sec. Very powerful, okay? Social motivation. I thought I was I thought I was productive and I realized, actually it was just because I was socially motivated. The people around me were doing cool stuff. And so I felt like I needed to up my game. And suddenly there's no people around me. And I'm like, why bother? Social motivation. Okay, we'll get to that. And your first job, it's kind of validation, but it's also kind of runway, right? So runway to keep going. And of course, earn a living following your rabbit holes, curiosities, making stuff. A lot of creativity is about taking leaps of faith. If I want to make something happen, I don't know if I can do it, but I try anyways while risking failure, right? That's a leap of faith. I'll give you an example, okay? About a few months ago, or a few weeks ago actually, we did our first IRL designathon, okay? We did an IRL designathon and it was like really fucking dope. Some of you were there and you know what I'm talking about. It's a huge leap of faith. Never organized an event like this and you're like, yo, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Why? Because it'll be cool. It'll be fun. Okay, that's just an example, right? Talking about following curiosity, seeking novelty, like, oh, let's do it because we've never done it before. And then let's go down this rabbit hole. Let's actually go design the whole thing and make it happen. So, Silicon Haldi, this was our first designathon. I said I'm gonna do something, and so now I have to do it. I just don't have a choice. I said I was gonna do something, and now I have to do it. It's too late to change my mind, right? That's a commitment. Now, for those of you who want to get into design, it means really, really realizing that I need to spend the time to apply what I've learned, to make stuff, to fail at it, to make it again. And then you have something that kind of looks good. Okay. You made something that kind of looks good, but then you're committed to do it again. But the jump that I'm talking about here, the small jump, of course, is the commitment. Guys, anything you want to do, you gotta commit. However, the other jump though, the big one, of course, is quitting your job. That's the hard one. Okay. There's another version of it, which is dropping out. Now, guys, I didn't drop out because I told my parents and they were like, shut the fuck up. You want to drop out? Go finish the rest of your 2 years that we're paying this for. And don't. So I was like, okay. I couldn't make that jump, the dropping out one. Quitting my job as well. I spoke to my mom and I was like, yo, I think I want to quit my job. Like, what will you do? I'm going to do a startup. I'm going to strive. What is the startup? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. The fuck? What the hell are you thinking about? Okay. So, point being, I don't have an answer when you should quit your job, whether you should drop out. But here's the thing: you got to make a commitment, and not a commitment in the future, a commitment in the present. Like, okay, I accept I can't drop out or I can't quit my job right now. I need my salary. I need to pay rent. But at the very least, I'm gonna commit to spend time learning what I need to, you know, following this curiosity of, hey, what exactly is out there? But that's not enough. You got to get your hands dirty. What it means is don't be a spectator, right? Actually do it. Actually do something with what you've learned. Apply that skill. Let's talk about the next thing here, network. I want to do something and I'm going to make it happen. All right. And then these people hear about it and they're like, lol, bro, boy is delusional. What are you talking about, bro? Or your parents, they're like, yo, shut the fuck up. Now, we can't just unfortunately say haters gonna hate, boom. Sometimes the haters, it's the people you love, right? And they're not hating, it's just they want the best for you. And if they feel like there is uncertainty, they want to protect you from that uncertainty. They'll be like, yo, you sure about that? You sure about that? And sometimes the sure about that is more of, bro, I'm gonna laugh at you, how delusional you are so that you don't think about bringing this up again. But then there's also other people out there who are like, oh, same. This concept that I was talking about right here, which is social motivation, there's a very strong thing. Okay, it's a very strong thing. Side note: I was in Copenhagen having an awesome time. It's been 6 months. It had been 6 months since I moved, and then I hit a wall. Okay, I realized I don't feel like doing anything. Is that relatable, guys? Have you ever felt that? I don't feel like doing anything. It's not, it's okay. And then another month goes by and I'm like, shit, man, I'm like falling behind on a bunch of stuff. And personal story, right? This actually happened to me. And not just once, it happened multiple times in the last 4 years. And I realized that I am productive not because I have something special. I realize I'm productive because it's social motivation. When you see a friend do it, you're like, if he can do it, I can do it, right? We are very, very social creatures. And so this whole idea of the network, I want to just, it's not a good to have, it's almost a must have. Almost a must have, right? And not even almost, absolutely must have. Why? It's because the more of these people that you have who are doing similar stuff, you realize, yo, squad. You realize, yo, we're in this shit together. But you also realize, if they can do it, I can do it. And then when your friend does something, it motivates you to do more, right? So, folks, super important part. Anything you want to do, find other people who are doing it. Like, straight up, we have self-limiting beliefs. We don't do certain things because we think we don't deserve them, or we don't know how to do them, or we think we're gonna fail, and we don't try. But then you see other designers, and you say, "Oh, if they can, we can." And here's the thing: the other people are doing the exact same thing, right? We're very mimetic creatures. We look at each other and we're like, "Yo, what's happening? Let's make some shit happen." This is why college is so fun. Because you're like, yo, you failed. Oh, you failed in that exam, bro. Or you're like, yo, fuck, how did you do that? You just earned $100 on the internet. How the hell did you do that, bro? Can you teach me? Now, the small note that I'll give here is this idea of an introvert. Now, guys, I don't like going out, meeting people, hundreds of. I'm an introvert myself, right? I'm just saying, folks, this is not about going and networking or something like that, right? It's not a thing, networking, kind of, but not exactly. It's more about having a squad, right? So, guys, have a squad. That's my main point here. Even if it's just 2, 3 friends in a group chat, just do it, okay? It helps. 2, 3 friends in a group chat, that's really sometimes all that you need. Beyond that, making your first $100 on the internet. Now, this actually happened to me. My classmate in college, he was like, yo, I just got a new freelance client and they're paying me $100. And I was like, wow, like, that's cool. Can you teach me how to do it? And then I realized it was $100 an hour. Now, of course, guys, let's just say it's not a full-time job, right? It was like a small task or something and a couple of hours and then you're done. Point being, money is good because it helps you stay motivated. And it also makes you realize that, wait, I can invest more time into this because I'm getting some return out of this. Now, my suggestions on this is, of course, there is the job that you can get, right? There's jobs out there, but it requires work and struggle. Internships, great. We've already got videos on this on the channel. You can check it out. But beyond that, I would just say, projects. Okay. And again, you want to figure out how to get into freelancing and all of that. I think I've already spoken about it in a bunch of videos, but I would say don't skip this part, right? I know it's a little weird sometimes thinking about money and what's my worth and all of this stuff, but it's worth it to figure it out, right? If you're able to do this, it also removes a lot of uncertainty, right? So definitely figure this out. There is no one way to make money. Yeah, jobs are a very standard thing that, it's a social contract that exists in the world. Awesome. But in the end, it's about this. There's you. There is something that you can create. Now, when you create this, it goes out into the world. Okay. People use it and it creates some value, right? And then people want to pay you for it. You guys get it, right? You make some stuff, you put it out in the world, you increase your surface area. A lot of this is value created that comes back, right? I'm not going to go deep into this jobs thing, already talked about in the past. But overall, folks, just zooming out now, this is roughly how you transition to design. But beyond that, it's how do you go from where you are now to where you would want to be.